Welcome back to Ion Radio and this episode of the Backseat Admiral. I'm John. Today is going to be another recorded video. Like you guys know, my wife's very pregnant and going to have a baby soon, so I'm just pre-recording this just in case. Hopefully, in the season finale, I'll be back to live streaming it, so we'll see how that goes. So today I'm going to be discussing Season 3, Episode 9, which is our last standard size episode for this season, and also the last standard size episode before we jump into our March Madness, copyrighted. So our This Is Madness tournament. It just so happens to be in March. So, pretty excited about those things. So Ken and I think I talked a couple weeks ago about how we do thematic lists or we choose something weird and we just go with it. So this one is going to be the Battle of the Tarkins, Grand Moff Tarkin versus Admiral Tarkin. And to add another layer on top of that, it's not only just the Battle of the Tarkins, it is also the Battle of the Ignition Tokens. So in this list, Ken is Grand Moff Tarkin with 2 Onikers, and I am Admiral Tarkin with one of my favorite ships in the entire game, Venators with Spats. So let's dive right in. I'm going to go over my list first, and then talk about Ken's, talk about a few changes, and then we'll talk about what actually took place in the game. There's not a lot of ships, so this might go pretty quick. Okay, so I have my triple Venator list, and the flagship is a Venator 1 class Star Destroyer. It has Admiral Tarkin on it. Adi Gallia is also there, and I'm going to talk about all the stuff and then why I have them on here. And then I have Intensify Firepower, Ordnance Experts, Link Turbo Laser Towers, and the Tranquility title. So I've actually played this list once before, and it ended up being, it was funny, like I've only been out into the wild like maybe 3 times in the last 2 years almost to play Armada with anyone, and one of the gentlemen that he's actually part of our Discord, and he brought a Mirror Fleet, which was really, really funny. I'm like, I got this triple Venator list. He's like, I have a triple Venator list. I'm like, my commander is Admiral Tarkin. He's like, I do too. They were both very different lists though. He had a bid on me, so he got to choose to go first, and then he also had like all Venator 1s with Spats, and he had Mercy Mission and gave it to a Corvette and ended up winning by one point. I missed out on controlling the station the last turn by like that much. If I would have gotten to that token, then I would have won that game. But 1 point, man, it was so close. So close. But anywho, I learned some lessons from that game, and I was going back and forth of what type of defensive retrofits to put onto this ship, this Venator 1 flagship I had, and that's why I went with Tranquility and Aligalia. So he kept locking down my redirect, so he just spat with 2 spats right through my front shields, and there was nothing I could do about it. I could brace it, but it's still like, here's 8 damage. I brace it to 4, shields are gone, and then here's more 8 damage, and they're gone, and then you're double arcing me. So he just like, all my shields except for my front shields were still on the ship. So these 2 cards allow me to at least flip over things like, yeah, I'm going to contain just for fun, and I'm going to spend the salvo just for fun, just to use Ollie to kick him to the side to try to keep the ship alive a little bit longer. And then Tranquility, if I don't spend defense tokens, I can transfer it to the front. Funny thing, I'm sure it's happened to all of you before, but sometimes when you read a card, you just kind of glance over it and then you just blah, 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 the ending of it. And apparently I did that, and I didn't realize that someone on our Discord pointed it out to me. But Tranquility, you can't adjust shields that have already been increased, and you can't adjust any of the other shields. There's 3 cards that allow you to do things like this, and I just kind of blah blah blah'd all of them together. So you have the title, I believe it's Aspiration for the I'm gonna start pulling this up. Aspiration for the MC75 is worded the exact same way as this card over here. And then you also have the title for the Separatist ship, the Recusant, the one that you don't see because why would you bring something that's not Patriot's Fist? And that's the Gilded Aegis. And that one's different than the rest. So Gilded Aegis allows you to transfer up to 6 shields to the front of your ship. And you can't recover or do anything with shields on that one as long as it's greater than your starting. But you can do it on other hull zones. This ship, with Tranquility and Aspiration, means that if you boost any of them, you can't do it. And I don't know, I just never actually must have read the card, which is because I've played people with Aspiration before in tournaments, and they regenerated the rest of their shields, and I was fine with it because I never looked at it. And then I think Ken did it the other day when we were playing that game that I was TF and he was someone else. He was a rebel. He was Radis. He did it there, and I didn't think of anything of it because I thought that's what the card was. And then I didn't think of anything of it, and I just boosted my front shields, leaving them up there, and then regenerating the rest. If I read the card, I wouldn't have done that. I would just keep my shields at standard rate and then just throw the shields when I get attacked with Tranquility. So read your cards. Who would have thought? It's important. So the idea here is I'm going to primarily set all Concentrate Fire tokens with Admiral Tarkin, and it does 2 things for me. It allows this ship, who doesn't need to ready a spat, to use his Concentrate Fire token for Intensify Firepower. And that's great, especially when you have blue dice, because spats are pretty much blue dice. And if you get too many accuracies, you can just flip them over. Like, I accuracy everything, and then make that last accuracy a hit. And sometimes, like, when you want them to spend out tokens, and it doesn't really matter because you're not going to necessarily kill them yet, you can just flip your accuracies all to hits and be like, go ahead, use your tokens, I don't care. Cool. You spend them out. Ordnance pods is I have them on all my ships because I want to primarily be shooting ships, but at the same time I don't want to just let squadrons go nuts on me. So if I need to, I can ordnance pod after each activation of each of my ships. So if I'm just holding back with 3 Venators that all have ordnance pods, that's 3 black dice on every single ship that's in my front or wherever I'm shooting, or all the squadrons, every single turn, and I don't even have to think about it. And if I start getting close, well, they have like double blue flak that I'm going to just dump into them too. So you can kill a whole squadron ball and be spatting out the side pretty well with this type of fleet. It's just there just in case to make that player that's coming at you think, and then when they attack you, you're like, oh, okay, I'll salvo that to try to kill squadrons. So also, Link Turbo Laser Towers says that then you can dump 2 more black dice into the ordnance pods if it's the first squadron you've attacked this activation, which is always fun. This ship primarily wants to sit in the back and just fire its red dice and do its admiral duties and draw fire to it. When you're like, why would you want the flagship to take fire? Because I got defensive stuff on this and salvo. Like, go ahead, shoot this, and the other 2 Venators are going to move around you and try to kill you. So with Link Turbo Laser Towers and Intensify Firepower, those 3 dice should at least be 1 hit, then guaranteed for me. Cool. That's about it. So try to keep it alive and support the other ships. That's the purpose of this one. Then I have 2 identical Ben 2 class Star Destroyers. First one has Nova, Clone Navigation Officer, Gunnery, Clone Gunners, the SPAT, Thermal Shields, Ordnance Pods, and XI-7s. And this is my standard, like, go-to gunboat Venator 2. The Clone Navigation Officer is there because of Clone Gunners. And sometimes what you want to do with Clone Gunners and Clone Navigation is you're using Concentrate Fire on your ship. And then you're like, I might need an accuracy over there. Or I might need to put a token back on that ship or my own ship because I've used Clone Gunners, vice versa. So you're like, I reach out, I touch that ship, it can have a Concentrate Fire for free from Clone Navigation Officer, and then I'm going to Clone Gunner it away and I get an accuracy to block your defense tokens. Because sometimes blue dice are like, I know you really need 1 accuracy and you rolled 6 of me, but I don't care, here's all hits. So it just allows you to have more control over what you're going to be doing. And then you get them back for free. Like, you can do it twice with each ship for free. It's crazy. Clone Gunners is very good to just add that extra accuracy, like I was saying. So the SPAT attack is 5 blues and 1 black dice. And then you can concentrate fire in there and add a black dice. With Intensify, you can just turn something to a hit. And sometimes you're like, okay, so that's 7 dice, 7 damage, but I didn't get an accuracy. Clone Gunner says, hey, here's an accuracy, block the brace, takes 7. And that's very powerful. Or if you are taking too much damage from salvo, you could just block the salvo. Go ahead and use your other defense tokens. But it's a way to reliably guarantee that you can probably kill a ship. Thermal shields are here just to flip over and cancel dice. Venators are not as tough as an ISD, even though you kind of use them as an ISD, and their arcs aren't necessarily as good. Like this one, like at long range, it's throwing 2 red dice. That's not much at all. So thermal shields allows you to spend that brace, avoid intel officer, and then still be able to like reduce their dice. And you see me do that against Ken's Onikers, which you have to do because it's like block out all those black dice because they're gonna hurt. But I really want to block out the red dice because Ken makes like 5 red dice into like 6 damage and an accuracy with a crit, which is nuts. But yeah, it's a good card, and you don't always have to use it, but it's just there for insurance. Ordnance pods, I already went over that with the last ship. And now what I think brings this whole thing together is XI7 turbo lasers with the SPAT. And let's talk about the standard type of defense suites that most ships have. Right now, most large ships are a brace, a redirect, a contain, and a salvo. That salvo is sometimes another contain or is another redirect. So when you're attacking with your SPAT attack and you can guarantee block the brace with clone gunners, you don't want them to redirect then. You can't salvo it, so you don't have to worry about that. Containing it, I don't really care. I just want to get that damage in because it's just damage. And then XI7 says all those redirects, the only other token that you can possibly use in this interaction, can only do 1 and is useless. So both of these ships have that, so that if I do get that lucky like 7 damage and an accuracy, boom, that goes straight through. That's all your shields and into the hull. And if you don't have a contain, then you're dead. You're already pretty much dead. And then the other one does the exact same thing right into you. And you're taking significant damage. You can't even move it anywhere. And you basically melt the ships right off the bat. The goal is to double arc with this ship. And hopefully get the side shot to have the SPAT and then the front because it's more powerful. But either way, as long as you're not at close, it doesn't really matter because it's the same 2 reds and 2 blues out the side. Interesting thing is this SPAT, because it has to be placed at close range and you have blue dice and the way the different range bands are made, this technically hits like 1 centimeter to 2 centimeters into the extreme range. So just something to take into consideration. Okay, I think that's it for my fleet. Let's jump over to Ken's and talk about what he has. He has a double Oniker interdictor list. He has an interdictor suppression refit with Grand Moff Tarkin, who can pass out tokens to everyone. He is not necessarily essential to this build. Like my Tarkin, he's very essential because all of my SPAT generation needs concentrate fire tokens, and my Intensify firepower needs concentrate fire tokens, and then I want to be concentrating fire still. So I don't have enough control to be doing something that's not concentrate fire with my Tarkin. Ken has the freedom to do what he wants with his Tarkin, but it's not necessarily a list that has to have Tarkin. He has Darth Vader Officer, which allows you to discard other officers or commanders and reroll dice. Funny, not funny. Ken and I are both getting older. In the game, I asked him if he was in range of Darth Vader, and he literally picked up the card and said it's 1 to 3, and then put it down. And here you can see that it's 1 to 5, and we both just went with it and have a good laugh now looking back. I'm like, you lifted up the card to read it, and you read it wrong. Man, we're both like getting up there. Okay, so then he has projection experts here and targeting scramblers, the G7X Gravwell projector, and the interdictor title. So this is like a healing ship, so he mainly wants to hold it back. So how my Venator 1 is there to support my other two ships, this is here to support his two Onikers. With projection experts, he can pass shields. And with targeting scramblers, when I get in close, because I want to be in close because I don't really want to fight him at range because he'll outrange me and outgun me at range, he gets to make me reroll dice, which is cool. And then he can set this out so I have a dead zone to start. And then you have the interdictor title, so you can targeting scrambles twice, which is my preferred way how to run targeting scramblers. So then he has his first Oniker, and this is the Oniker that's going to try to hit you if you set up in that speed 0 zone. It has Admiral Ozzel, which allows you to do a speed 1 maneuver if you want to. Good card, and he's also really easy to chuck out the airlock with Darth Vader to reroll. Veteran Gunners, which is great for the Oniker, because you basically roll, spend out all your accuracies, reroll with Veteran Gunners. If your black dice still aren't behaving, then you can reroll with Ordnance Experts. This has a lot of built-in reroll ability. Then, of course, it has the red ignition, long-range, orbital bombardment, particle cannons, which suck to face because you're launching it at like double what range should be. And then the Cataclysm title, which with Tarkin he can give a token, and then you're choosing the order, so you can then shoot first turn. So the idea is to get it in a place that with Ozzel you can throw it forward and shoot on first turn against a ship as first player, going speed 0 and just dump all the dice right into damage. And you should be able to like score enough damage with Veteran Gunners and Ordnance Experts, and then you chuck Ozzel. So it's like 3 rerolls. So you roll in, reroll, reroll, and then Ordnance Experts reroll. That's a lot of rerolling ability. Then his next ship is an Oniker class testbed, and this is the one that I would actually change. I am not a fan of putting Nita on an Oniker, and I think his idea here was we're going to be passing attacks back at long range so he could cancel dice, and that's cool. I would much rather have my Salvo in this, because him knowing that I'm going to be using spats means that he also would know that I'm going to try to double arc him, and if I'm trying to double arc him, then he should be able to salvo against me. And I think he actually would have killed my Venator a bit earlier if he had the salvo instead of the evade, but then he wouldn't have been evading double, so then he would have taken more damage, so it's like a wish-wash. But instead of Nina, he could take, what's his name? Titus. And what Titus does is you can change the speed of someone in front of you. And that might be useful, or force them to take a maneuver. Let me just read him real fast. I haven't read him in a while. I think that's what I would take. This is not that. At the start of the first round, you may change one enemy speed to speed 1. Doesn't really matter. He would have been a better cheap admiral, or you could take in skilled first officer if your goal was just to chuck someone out the airlock. I don't think the evade really helps out in this circumstances. And then you have gunnery chief Valarin, and I don't like her. For the most part, you don't want to be taking damage out to put damage onto her unless you're salvoing. Salvoing, you could do it because it's not an add, it's a exchange dice, so you can still technically do that. But with Nina on here, you don't have that option because you can't salvo, so basically your only attacks are your primary attacks, so you want to keep as much damage as you can on those primary attacks, but then you lose the reroll ability of Veteran Gunners, and Veteran Gunners is cheaper, so Veteran Gunners here probably would be better. And then you can do the same thing, which is Veteran Gunners into tossing Nita out the airlock, into Ordnance Experts, into a lot of damage with the Orbital Bombardment Cannon. So that's what I would change here. And then token Squadron of Sienna Ray and Valen Rudor, which I guess I could have tried flacking, but there's no reason to because they have scatter, and I would have to get like every single turn 3 hits with all 3 of my ordnance pods, and ordnance pods can't even attack Sienna, which is annoying. So these two fighters, I can't kill. So they're just protection of Ken for 30 points, which is what it is. So those are the lists. Let's talk about objectives, and then we'll break into how the game actually rolled out. So Ken got to pick and be first player. I would have picked first player too, because you really want that nice cataclysm shot against me. And then these are my options that I gave him: surprise attack, contested outpost, and solar corona. Personally, this is just me, I would have picked surprise attack. And that sounds crazy, but that's what I would have gone with for these reasons. Solar Corona gives me the Solar Corona picked as the Imperial player gives the Gar player full control over the battlefield. Surprise attack kind of does as well, but you have the Interdictor, and that's your flagship. And your Onagers can set up to gun whatever's coming toward that Interdictor down. And you have Tarkin, which, like I already went over, he's not necessarily essential to this. So you just predict whatever those raid are, and you just pass it out to all your ships, and raid doesn't even do anything. What does do things is pinning the flagship on the station. But what you do is, like, you have, let's pretend this is the board, right? So Gar side, Imperial side, the outpost is down here. You put the Interdictor just touching the far edge, and then you scoot it along behind the Onagers, and then it doesn't matter because you're not going to be wanting to run the Venators across the table through the Onager line just to chase down the flagship. So I would have done surprise attack, and that wouldn't have given me then any points. It would just been annoying, and Ken could have just outdone things with tokens because he's Tarkin, and he can pick whatever token. So... Nav, here's a Nav token. Okay, so I can get rid of that. Oh, concentrate fire, here's a concentrate fire token. Like, you could always be right there, and raid wouldn't really affect you at all. Contested outpost holds one of my ships completely out of combat, which is my flagship at this, because I want the spat cruisers to go forward. So it's really a gamble. Can you kill me off that outpost before I move my Venators across and wipe you out? So that's the gamble that Ken took. He did a good amount of damage, but I don't think he expected my Venators to be crashing into him as fast as he was. Like I said, Solar Corona would have probably been the worst option, because then all of my ships would have been combat ships, and I would have known where everything Ken had was, so I could just directly counter deploy against him. And then I get to choose the side, so your accuracies wouldn't do anything, and then I would just ignore your accuracies and then hit you in the face. So I personally would have gone surprise attack, but that's because I'm crazy and very bold in that. Ken chose contest outpost, which I think it would be, from my opinion, the second best option. So that's kind of it for that setup. Both of us, so I've already made changes to my fleet, so there's really nothing that I would change. I talked about that. And I would change that second Onager to more closely match the first one, because I don't, that's personally me. Ken's punished me so many times with Gunnery Chief that I can see why he uses her, but I like rerolls because she just doesn't do it anytime I've tried to use her. Rerolling all 5 of my blank red dice, though, is way more way more useful than just flopping one of those blanks out for a crit or something. Okay, so let's talk about the game, and then I'm going to go over some stuff with Onagers, because I just don't like Onagers. Everyone knows that, and I have very strong opinions on Onagers, and I'll just rehash it all over again. So here we go. This is the setup. It's really hard to see because it's under my ship, but right here is where Ken's, I think it's what, GX7 or whatever the Grav Rift is that you start at speed 0. I'm fine starting at speed 0 because I don't really care. And if I spend less than 0 defense tokens, Tranquility allows me to move. It works going speed 0, which is awesome. So I can take at least one big shot to the face, and it would be guaranteed at the extreme range of range instead of at close. So it's like I would take 5 red dice, which I can't use defense tokens, so accuracies don't matter. And I'll just eat it. And then that ship just accelerates to speed 1, which is all that it wants to go because it just wants to hug this station and be best friends with it and gain 20 points per turn. These ships then I have set up to the side, so they're going to come crashing in here, hopefully killing these Onikers. Ken and I talked about this after the game, and he's like, maybe if I deployed on other side of it. And my point with that is, then your helper interdictor wouldn't be doing anything, and yeah, you would be able to shoot down there, but then I would just turn this, and like a Venator versus an Oniker, if I really needed to, it could outclass it and kill it. So wherever Ken puts this last Oniker, I just double up against the Oniker and interdictor, and then they die. Like, it would just be like a clean trade, which is pretty much what we did. So I don't really think it would have changed anything. Your opinion might be different, but that's kind of my opinion. But it is what it is. And so these are going fast because I want to be like here so I can spat. And then his are going slow because he wants the long range. So I just need to close range as fast as possible and try to get some double arcs while keeping my flagship alive. That's really the goal. And we're going to jump to the next slide. And you can see that, look at all these ignition tokens. And we're going to have a fun round. So my flagship is now moving in to control the station. And if I need to, I can jump it in and try to pin these ships while I come around. Ken brutalizes me with his ignition shots and things into this ship, which is rough. But I have a pretty good position of coming into his side, which is where you want to be to try to wipe out an Oniker, especially with XI7s, those 5 shields in the front. Ignore them. They don't matter at all to me. And he can just go slow and try to shoot me. Next, you can really see how close in this fight we are. Like, we have ignition tokens all over our own ships right in this area hiding because we're going to be blasting. This is where going second really, really hurts me, though. Because if I could activate first, I could kill his Onikers before they could shoot and then scoot in. But that's not the case. So Ken gets to activate, get a free ram on me for a ship I'm going to still have to shoot at to kill, which is annoying. And then it dies, and then I've now moved into like a terrible spot for me with double arc with the Oniker. So it is what it is. Then you can start seeing everything starts falling apart. This Venator is hurting. This Oniker is hurting. We're just now in range of my ship shooting it. So he gets to go, and then I get to go. It's just back and forth. It's really, this whole game was just throwing lots of dice and ignoring salvo. This is the place someone pointed out in the thing. Technically, at the end of the game, the interdictor is dead. 100%. We didn't do it right. Ken loses a shield. I have 4 damage. Ken has a shield. And he's like, I lose the shield, and then how much damage? And I say 3 to the face, which I meant like 3 to the hull, like right through. So instead of taking 1 off the shield and 3 hull damage, he took 1 off the shield and 2 hull damage. And he ended the game with 1 health left. So, table. It's done. I also think I could land on him, even if it wasn't the case, and kill him off, which I'll show you, because some people in the comments are like, I don't think so, but I have an in-game screenshot of the above, and I can describe to you what type of maneuver I can do with my Venator to change speed, because I had a nav, and I could change speed then and go from speed 1 to speed 2. Like, I would have been able to do it, but that's neither here nor there. And then you can see me doing my favorite thing, which is flying my ships through this nice, terrible debris field that I set up. So that ship's going to die. I just need to try to get more damage into here. And this is like the same thing that I was talking about earlier. If I was first player, we wouldn't be playing this objective. But like being able to shoot and then scoot away from the interdictor instead of just being double arc turn after turn after turn after turn from the interdictor really took a hit from the Venator, because I don't really have the defense tokens to do anything against it. And by this point, I don't have any shields. And like all my shields are on the front, and all of Ken's things are in the back just shooting into me. That's not good for me. But like the interdictor does just such consistent damage. It's like 3 blues and a red. Take 3 damage in accuracy. 3 damage in accuracy. 3 damage in accuracy. And you just add that up turn after turn after turn. And it hurts. It really, really hurts. Because you don't really want to brace it. Because then it's like, oh, 2 damage. And now I can't salvo you. I still take 2 damage. Again and again and again. But it is what it is. That's why Solar Corona is so bad for Ken. Because he has an interdictor. And it's all just straight blue dice. So he would probably be losing a lot of dice through the game from that. And then you can see I moved my Venator. It still controls the outpost, but Ken gets to activate first, so this ship's going to die, and then he's going to scoot around me. So this is the last image you guys see from the game, and then this is the last image that I took after we played. Like, Ken had to actually leave, so we kind of played the last turn pretty fast. So I didn't even attempt to maneuver, and you see the realization hit me in the face during our final talk that I could have rammed you and killed you. So this is how I would do it. So I have a nav dial, and I'm going speed 1. And they are click, click, normally, at speed 2. So that means, let me just verify, it is a Venator. It has, speed 2 has a click and then a click. And I can add a click with a nav dial, which I can do, and then I can double click. So I can measure first, but if you just look off the front of this, and I do a double click at speed 1, my butt should land on it. But if I really wanted to guarantee it, I do 1 click this way, and then 2 clicks that way, and it does this weird maneuver like that, and then for sure I hit it. For sure I ram it, and I destroy it. So that's what hit me there. It wouldn't have mattered because technically it was already dead. But if that shot, if we did the damage right, it would be dead. But we didn't. And I would be able to ram it and kill it. Because if we weren't playing this objective, I would have had to kill it. So let's take a look real fast at the end score. Ken actually killed more of my fleet than I killed of his. He killed 258 and I killed 230. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Ken has 5 points a bid, which I can't get until I table him. And he has 30 points of squadrons, which I can't get because there's no way that I'm going to be flacking 2 aces down one of them, which is obstructed. So Ken in this game has a 35-point protection of scoring against me. So if you add 35 points and pretend that we're both 400 with just ships, it's pretty close. It's like right there. This game is like, in essence, a tie from what we're killing of each other. And then I had 120 points worth of contested outpoints. So don't choose contested outpoints. That's why if I were Ken, I would have chosen surprise attack, because then it wouldn't give me any points. And I knew where he would have to set up. So you put the station, and then you start speed 0 over here so you can't get to me, and then I shoot across into whatever the Gar player plays. So it's a really tight MOB. It's only 92 points, so it's a 7-4 for me, and that kind of wraps up the end of Season 3, Episode 9 of our Standard. So now I get to talk to you guys about the fun stuff that we have going forward. And I want to take a moment to talk about why I strongly dislike Ignition and Onikers just in general. If you guys haven't seen already, 5 of the top 16 teams in LVO had Onikers in them in some variety or form. That's a lot of one specific type of ship in a top 16 because it's way overpowered for what it does. It costs only 96 points, this test bed, and it has 4 red dice out the front and 3 black if you are in close range of the ignition token, which can be fired at twice the range of any other ship. So let's just look at that real fast. There we go. So 96 points. That's like 20 points cheaper than any other Star Destroyer. This Red dice alone is an ISD2 shooting at double its normal range. That's absurd. For 20 points less. And it goes speed 3 and is just as maneuverable as a Star Destroyer. That's really what I think. This ship should never have been able to go speed 3, and it shouldn't be this maneuverable. It's supposed to be a catapult. Like, one of those things on the battlefield that you build in place to hit a wall, and yet you can go speed 3 with it, and you can put engine techs on it, which means it can go theoretically speed 4. Does this really look like an MC-30 or a CR-90? No. It goes too fast. Way too fast for it. Especially when most of the time it just goes slow and then it jumps up to speed to get away. That's where the problem starts coming up. It's too cheap, it goes too fast, and Ignition's super, super powerful when there's no mini game to play to get it. So, like I said earlier, that my ships had to have Tarkin as their commander, or it just doesn't work. I have to build a mini-game puzzle out of it of how I'm getting concentrate fire tokens so I can be refreshing my spats, so then I can be putting my spats out. So it's like a game of games inside of it. Like, this is the only way I can play that list, is because there's a mini-game of where tokens go, how they're spent off and on the ship to get it to work. The Oniker does not do that. It just gets to do it every single turn, and it's like cheaper. This is 90 points, plus 6 points. So 96 points, and I have this card. Hold on, that's not the right card. Here we go. 100 points for a Ven 2. I thought it was more expensive. Plus 7 points, and my modification slot to have the spat. So right there, we're talking about 107 points, and I have really crappy speed 3, and that. So let's go back to the Oniker. Oniker goes speed 3 and is 96 points, and it has a stronger spat that goes way, way farther. Mine goes this much into extreme range, while this one can go an entire ruler into extreme range without taking any of the weapon icons, or whatever you want to call these, the orbital bombardment, different ones. It can always, every single turn, put a token out at close range. So that means you're shooting a complete close range into extreme range with it for free. You don't even need to be able to use the other two that allow you to put it at medium range and long range. And then you look at this, and it costs 5 points. The spat itself costs more, and this is more powerful with the Ignition going to red range instead of close, and it's a really, really powerful critical effect. What? How? How does that make sense? Even making this unique doesn't matter. There's no mini game. It just gets to do it for free, and it gets to do it for cheaper. Crazy. And then you can't even salvo it, which is a whole thing of making you think. I personally think that you should be able to salvo any Ignition shot as long as your ship's in range. So if you can't do it at extreme range, okay, I get that. But when we're in close range and you're doing all your attacks against like Separatist ships or Gar ships, when you're like right on top of each other, and you're like, oh, you can't actually salvo me because I'm an Ignition attack, makes no sense. Or the fact that at long range you're accuracying these ships and they just explode. Like if you watch the LVO final, the guy one-shots a CR-90 at extreme range, which is absurd. But hey, that's the game. They made a terribly broken ship, and it's not going to change until that ship actually gets changed, which needs to change for Ignition as a whole. What I would change in Ignition is at extreme ranges, you cannot spend accuracies. That will allow ships to helpfully survive, and then you won't be going through, I'm going to veteran gunner, spend my accuracies, and then I'm going to spend off my thing to get more accuracies, and then I'm going to ordnance spot, and then you're going to get hit by 9 damage for a short ship, and it just explodes. It's just not fun. It's not playing a game with the opponent. You're playing your own game, and your opponent was sad enough to show up to it. I just think the Oniker and the Ignition needs to be changed. If for the health of the game, it needs to be changed. So we'll see if they actually do that. So the next week, we're going to be playing an 800-point battle. A big brawl between the Empire and the Rebels. And I'm going to be flying as Darth Vader, who's the classic Imperial leader, against the classic Rebel leader, who is Admiral Akbar. So tune in to see that big battle. After that, we're going to be hitting into our Madness tournament, and Ken and I are both very, very excited. If you haven't already, put in your bracket on our Discord, and it's just for bragging rights of who you think is going to win. So if you haven't already, join our Discord, subscribe for more Armada content, and I will be seeing you guys next week. Until then, I'm John. This is the Backseat Admiral, and you've been watching Ion Radio.